Well, here we are back again. Romaine,
Hi.
hello. Why are you
Hi.
waving around papers? What's
I don't
happening?
know. I'm very excited to be here on this summer session with you, Derek.
Are you?
No.
Okay. I actually am very excited. This is episode 9.
Why am I so mean?
I don't know. This is the kind of episode you have when you hang out at the farm with Romaine.
It's sure. Oh, you get a lot more than that when you hang out at the farm with Romaine.
Those of you who are not
Mhm.
listening to our live daily radio show, you don't know what we're referring to, but Romaine recently had an incident where she caused a woman to lose a finger. So anyway,
Nothing of the sort. Thank you very much. A woman lost a half a finger, but it wasn't, I had nothing to do with it. I was completely innocent. I was a bystander, and I tried to help her get that finger reattached.
yeah, I'm innocent.
I
I'm not
pulled that
responsible for
finger right
anything.
out of the mouth of a horse, is what I did. I was brave when there was a cannibal man eating horse around.
Okay.
A
The
cannibal is
horse
someone
did
who eats
not
its
eat
own
another
horse. I
horse.
know.
It is not a
Well, we
cannibal.
don't know that it's not willing to eat other horses, in all fairness. This horse is a rabid beast,
Yeah, well, now it's got
large
a
and in
taste.
charge.
Yeah, well, it's got a taste for human flesh now,
Yeah.
so you're all in danger.
Die. You don't have to tell me. I'm aware. I'm scared. Ooh.
Move over, cocaine bear. Say
No.
hello to cannibal horse.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay.
Well, I'm glad we had this talk.
Oh, me too. Oh, the good times, the
Uh,
great times.
I
Hello.
agree. Okay, so it is episode 9 of the
Yeah.
summer sessions, and we are
Hmm.
running a little bit low on summer these days.
Oh, I know.
But
It's almost over. And it literally feels like the weather went from hot to cold, like overnight.
yeah, well, I mean, I actually I'm enjoying our current weather situation, although we do
It's a little
record these a little bit
chilly.
in advance, so
Uh-huh.
we could have a hurricane bearing down on us by the time you actually watch this.
I
Oh,
hope
hopefully
not.
not. You know
I
how
mean, that's
Romaine hates
terrifying.
she hates hurricane
I
coming.
do not like a hurricane. That part is true. Yes.
Okay.
They scare me.
So, because these are already too long anyway, a quick recap of the plot of every episode of Summer Sessions here. The question of the day, which is a shout out to
Hmm.
Maria, who does the question of the day every day in our Facebook group. So you can answer these questions that we are posting here for yourself right there. And even though in a recent episode, I think 2 episodes ago, we used a question of the day that was not from Maria. She, in a log rolling in our time scenario, used the question of the day from Summer Sessions as the question of the day in the Facebook group. So, but the one we have today is from the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Then we're going to have a recent story that we didn't cover on our live daily radio show that we wish we
Hmm.
had. Then we will move on to what's hot about, where Romaine and I will talk up one of the various destinations that we have been to on our DNR travels, and hopefully will entice you to join us on the road, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then finally, the ball is really rolling downhill now. We actually have viewer feedback and questions to talk about at the end of the episode. People are
That
actually
makes me so nervous. So
well,
nervous. Oh,
people are finally responding to this summer sessions, and I hope they're
great.
also subscribing to our live daily radio show. Remember, you can use the discount code 2024
Yeah.
to listen to our show for free. You can sign up at dnrstudios.com. It'll give you a free trial. You can download the DNR Cast app in the Apple App Store or in Google Play
Yep.
and hear our show. Try it out. Get back in the habit, like a nun in Sister Act 2. Okay,
Okay.
Romaine,
Yes,
let us
Derek.
get to the question of the day. What is this week's question of the day weekday?
Okay, here is our question of the day. What song, Derek, immediately makes your hand reach to turn up the volume?
Well, I have to say it's topical and timely. I
Okay.
do enjoy a good tune. I'm not, I've talked about this before about how my pop culture blind one of my pop culture blind spots is music. Like I'm much better at remembering TV shows and movies and old celebrities and that kind of thing, but I don't have great retention of songs and musicians and that kind
Okay.
of thing. So it's a little bit of a blind spot for me, but I have to say, honestly, the go-to, especially this time of year, is Earth, Wind, and Fire, September.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, look, that is a as good a song as the music industry has ever delivered. I mean, I don't know, maybe there were amazing songs 1,000 years ago, but for our modern era, it is as close to a perfect song as there is. And it's a great song and it gets people up. And years ago when we were at the old facility, Earth, Wind, and Fire performed, like because they had a big performance studio in the lobby, and sometimes we would do our show in there when we had special events or special guests, our anniversary shows and that kind of thing. But frequently they would use that space for musicians who would do live performances,
Right.
and it was really cool to work there because sometimes there would be like a great, band that would be playing. And I remember when Earth, Wind, and Fire was there, I went to watch, and our former producer, Sam, came running down the hallway because she had been excited that they were going to be there. And then she forgot that they were there. And then she realized when she looked around and all the chairs were empty around her that they were there and performing. Like she heard them and she came running down the hallway and she's like, "Did they do September yet?" And I was like, "Yeah, you missed it." She's like, "No."
Oh, no. That's a bummer.
So it was pretty great to see them, live and do like the jam. I mean, they've had other really incredible songs, but the reality is September is the jam. And so yeah, that's my pick. What about you, Romaine?
So for me, a song that's gonna make me turn up the volume is a song that I love to sing along to.
Mm,
So I'm trying to think, there's a handful of like songs that fall into this category. So like there are certain Indigo Girls songs that the second they start, I'm gonna turn up the volume because I want to sing along.
such a
Because hello,
lesbian.
I'm a lesbian. But I think the song that probably would be the most unexpected for our listeners is the song More that Madonna sings on her I'm Breathless album. It's a Stephen Sondheim song, and I fucking love that song. Not only do I love it, I love to sing that song. And it's always on my playlist. And whenever I'm in the car and it comes on, I sing along. I love that song. But you know who else loves that song? My
Madonna.
daughter.
Oh,
No, Romy has just developed a love for that song too. And so now when it comes on and we're in the car together, we crank up the volume and we sing along to it together, and that makes me love it even more.
how is this song from 35 years ago from the Dick Tracy soundtrack coming up when you're in the car?
Because it's on one of my because I have like playlists of my favorite songs that I've put together. So when I'm in the car, I just put on my playlist and it comes on.
This is why you never know any current popular music.
I don't listen to a lot of current pop music because unless Romy has it on one of her playlists, and then I do. But she listens to a lot of older music too. So yeah, we always are fighting, her and I, over who gets control over which playlist is played in the car. Most of the time, I let her win, but
Okay, well,
sometimes I win.
Chapel Roan slashed and burned this summer, and you know,
She's great. I have to say,
she,
Romy plays her music all the time. I like her music a lot.
and she is a lesbian, so you
Yeah.
could get up in there, both
Well, yeah, and
literally and figuratively.
she has some filthy lyrics in her songs, which is quite entertaining.
Well, she's
Mhm.
lesbian.
Yeah.
She's your kind of lesbian.
Yeah. She sure is. So anyway,
Okay.
so those are my types of songs that make me turn up the volume. Also,
Turn it up.
It's raining men. If I hear that song, we're gonna crank up the volume to that too.
Hi, hi. We're the weather girls. Okay, that gets you.
Oh,
That
every
gets you
time.
going.
Every time.
Paul Schaefer, the band leader on David Letterman, wrote that song.
Oh, I did not realize that he wrote that song.
Yeah.
That's awesome because I love that
So,
song.
I mean, I assume that bought him a house somewhere. That song has
Probably.
been
That
played a
song
lot.
is like the gayest of gay anthems.
So there you go. There's the
Yeah.
irony. Paul
Yep.
Schaefer wrote that song. Okay, let us move on to a recent story we didn't cover but wish we had.
Okay. You
Do you
want me
want
to
me to
go
start?
first? Oh no, you go first. You go first.
Okay. I feel like today's episode is going to be very themed about around Romaine now.
Oh
And
God.
so I'm going to go into a story that I think will speak to Romaine Patterson. A woman in New Zealand went recently to the movies to see Despicable Me,
Okay.
which I've never seen any of these
They're
Minion
fun. They're stupid
movies.
fun movies.
Ugh, I don't care.
They're dumb.
Anyway, she went to see Despicable Me and she brought her own snacks to the movie theater.
Okay.
And the theater called the police on her for bringing her own snacks to the
That
theater.
seems like a very strong reaction, but okay.
I agree. So, given the outrageous prices that they charge at movie theaters,
Oh my
and
God. Insane prices.
not a joke, I think that the popcorn at my movie theater is
$14?
like the large bucket is like $15.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And
And by the
that
way, it cost them 12 cents to make.
Yeah, I think I get that there's going to be elevated prices in movie theater because you're sort of trapped in that environment and they can charge whatever they want because you can't really bring your own bucket of popcorn from home. But I just think if you're going to charge $15 for a bucket of popcorn, which is just outrageous. I mean, I think legitimately a bucket of popcorn should not be more than $10. And
Honestly, I think above $5 is a lot.
well, yes,
Considering, and here's the way I think about this. Same thing with the sodas. Considering what it costs the theater to provide those two items, sodas and popcorn,
yeah,
it is literally pennies per person.
yeah,
So their price per head markup is astronomical. Now, in all fairness, because Iris worked at a movie theater, I have a real understanding for how the pricing works in movie theaters. So the movie theater makes like $1, 25 off of every ticket sold to a movie. It's a very, very low percentage. And 99% of their money comes from their concession sales. So you have to think all the operating costs of the theater, all that money is being made from concession sales. But even their employees, they pay the employees the minimum amounts that they can, like
right.
minimum wage across the board. They pay them so very little that so they have cut corners everywhere they can. And they are literally just making money hand over fist with these concession prices.
Well, I mean, it's a very high profit margin
Yeah,
area for their business, and I am sure it insulates them from other problems. Like,
right.
in some ways, I wish that they had more dynamic pricing on the concessions because you would think that in a situation where they have a big hit movie, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when it was Barbie and Oppenheimer and
Right.
the theaters were packed. And I get it, you have to bring in extra staff for that and whatever, but the reality is why not lower your concession prices during that point? Like have specials on the concession price. You would sell a lot more concessions per person because you have a lot more customers that are there. But it might also encourage them to come back later and other times of the year if they're not like because
They're not
the
being
fun,
gouged on the one time they're there.
yeah, I mean in politics they talk about a lot about low propensity voters, people who don't vote in every single election, right?
Yeah.
So it's always how do you get low propensity voters to show up more frequently? And movie theaters are they have the same problem because there are low movie going people who go to a movie once a year,
Right.
maybe twice a year. And obviously, they're going for big special event movies. But the problem is, if you're the kind of person who doesn't go to the movies very often, like if the pandemic happened and you hadn't really gone to a movie since the big Marvel movies of 2019, right? And then you finally showed up back at a movie for Barbie in 2023, the concession prices probably went up 50 to 75% since the last
Easy.
time you were at the movies.
Yeah.
And so for that person, you finally lured them back in after 4 years, and then they said, "Oh, I'm not paying for this. This is insane," and then turned around and walked away and didn't want to come back.
Right.
So I feel like I understand the need for profitability because the movie theater chains have really struggled in the profitability department for the last few years. But I don't think that like outrageously overcharging people, having 20 minutes of commercials after the movie starts, and then calling the police on somebody who has kids who can't afford $60 worth of concessions on top of the movie ticket prices, it just makes people not want to come back.
Now, this was in what
New
country? New
Zealand.
Zealand? So here's the thing, and I just so happen to know this because my wife worked in a movie theater.
Oh, God. How
So
many, are you just gonna keep name dropping
yeah,
this?
I am. So because well, she doesn't work there anymore. But here's the thing. So obviously, movie theaters don't want you to bring in your own concessions because
No.
that's money that they are not making on your price per head. They have like this whole price per head, like how much money they need each person basically to spend to meet their goals, their financial goals, right? Or exceed them,
Yeah.
right? So the managers are incentivized to discourage people from bringing in their own food and drinks.
Sure.
But in the United States, and it may be state by state, but I know at least in New Jersey where she worked, there is no law that says you can't bring in your own concessions. In fact, they'll put like a little sign on the door that says no outside food or drink, but they can't actually enforce it. They can threaten to enforce it. They
Yeah.
could even tell someone, "Hey, you can't bring that in here." But they cannot actually enforce it. So if you were to walk in with your outside food or drink, they cannot make you leave for bringing it in because there is no rule or law that they have that could keep you from bringing in your outside food and drink. So obviously in New Zealand, that's not the case. Otherwise, they could have called the cops all day and it wouldn't have mattered. But in New Jersey, at the very least, you can bring in your outside food and drink, even if it says so, even if it says not to on the door. The door is just them trying to discourage it,
Yeah.
but they don't have any lawful means to refuse your right to do so.
Yeah. And so I mean, I understand people
But to
are
do that
feeling
in
the
front of her
pinch.
kids is fucked up.
Yeah.
Because she probably brought in the snacks for her kids.
Yeah. Also, when I was a kid, before we move on to our next topic, when I
Yeah.
was a kid, there was my uncle Richie had apparently helped to rehab this old theater in Petaluma, California, and upstate, like Northern California. And there was an old theater called the Plaza Theater, and he had done some like carpentry work or something there. So we used to be able to go for free. And it was a second run house. And I mean, it was a lot of former hippies who were like smoking a bowl on the balcony and hanging out. But anyway, but we used to go there all the time. It wasn't too super close to our house, but my mom was a single mom and we didn't have a lot of money. And like this was a good place to go. But they had a little bit of a concession stand, and it was kind of a hippy dippy concession stand.
All right.
But people would sometimes bring in their own food. And it was not particularly strictly enforced, but it was the kind of thing where it was a small second run theater. It was obviously run by like a person who was just trying to like eke out a little living, owning one small theater, right? And
Right.
so people did, try to support it, like buy their tickets and their concessions or whatever. But people would bring in their own food. And the most egregious was a woman walked in once, which I'll never forget it, with a full bowl of spaghetti, like
What?
a bowl with spaghetti and sauce on it and like a fork in it, and just like walk through the door. Because it's one thing of like, it's summer and you're wearing a parka and it's obviously full
Right.
of red vines or something, right? Nope, she just brazenly walked in with a bowl of spaghetti. A bowl, like a ceramic bowl of spaghetti at the
That's
movie.
weird.
A little bit weird. A little bit weird.
I
I
would
mean,
never think to do something like that.
no, because it's not a particularly movie theater friendly food. It's going to get cold immediately. I mean, maybe you
And
don't
it's
care about eating
messy.
cold pasta. I don't
Oh,
know. But
yeah,
she
gross.
probably lived around the corner and was like, oh, I got home late from work and I don't have time to eat dinner before I go to the movie. So I'm just going to take my dinner with me.
That's weird.
A little weird,
It's a
but it
little
was
weird.
Northern California. And
Hmm.
honestly, it's a little bit weird up in there. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is a great segue to our what's hot about because I guess that's what's hot about Northern California. You can
Yeah.
bring a bowl of spaghetti to the movies. But Romaine, pick our what's hot about destination.
Let's go. Oh, this is hard. Let's go with Florence.
Okay,
Yeah.
Firenze.
Yeah. Okay, so I love Florence because I love art and I love so many things about Florence in terms of the art and the architecture and the things there are to just see out in the open while you're there. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I really wish because I've been there now twice and I really wish I could go and just spend like a week or two in Florence to really take my time and to really take in all of the things there are to see because there's so many incredible museums there. There's so many, I mean, it's fucking bananas how much shit there is to see in Florence. I will say for me, I am a huge fan of Michelangelo's sculptures. And so when I went to see David in Florence the first time, um, I was excited to see the David statue, but, what really excited me, and I did not know they were there, so that was part of what was so exciting about it for me, is when you kinda come around the corner to make your way to the David, and you go through this little hallway, and in that hallway, there are, I wanna say 6, unfinished Michelangelo sculptures, like, they're the giant chunks of marble, and you could start to see the sculptures kind of emerging from these big slabs of marble. And it really shows the process in which Michelangelo took away the marble to reveal what it held inside. And I spent so much time in that hallway just watching and looking at these sculptures and imagining as he sculpted and how he brought these figures out of the marble. Um, and I just found that so fucking cool. Like it was probably one of the like I was so excited. And of course it's from his dying slaves or his slaves series that he didn't want to do, by the way. He was forced to do it by a pope. I can't remember which one, and he was angry about having to create these sculptures, and so you see his disdain and his anger and his, how upset he was based on how he is, depicting these slaves. And I could have spent days in that hallway just looking at those sculptures, those unfinished sculptures. So for me that's my favorite thing in Florence. But I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite thing because there are so many fucking cool things to see there.
Yeah, I think of all of the places in Europe, Florence is my favorite place.
It's amazing.
It's really a special place. And I can understand why artists were drawn to it. The
Mhm.
Arno is a beautiful river.
Yeah.
And just the topography of that area is lovely. The lovely rolling hills and the way the sunlight at sunset hits the river. It's really stunning. And you think about the artists and the work that they did, especially like paintings of Florence and everything. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful. But when you get there, you see, oh, they had a lot to work with here. Like it is a
Mhm.
really inspiring place. And I have spent a week in Florence. My friends Mickey and Scully invited me to come and because they had rented like an apartment, and we stayed for a week around Christmas 20 years ago.
Wow.
And Florence is a really wonderful place to spend a week because it has a lovely, relaxed vibe, especially when you're outside of the tourist period, right?
Right.
And you can just really walk around and as you can tell, like it is the kind of place where you can go to an outdoor cafe, you grab yourself a nice espresso and you sit outside and you just enjoy the architecture and the beauty
Yeah.
of the surrounding area. And it's really lovely. Um, and it has just absolutely incredible art and museums and palaces. And there are, very close by, there are medieval towns you can go and visit that are also really like fascinating to see. And the food is
Oh,
incredible.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
there really is a lot. There's a lot to offer here. And so a strong recommend here for Florence. When you go on a cruise, usually the port stop is like an hour away by bus each way. And it is a long, I mean, you do get a long day because usually they'll port pretty early in the morning and leave pretty late in the evening.
Yeah.
And you get on the bus. And I have to say, is usually they'll do like a Florence Pisa combo. And Pisa's fine, but once you get your picture of you going like this to the
Pisa's stupid. Don't
Tower
go.
of Pisa, there's nothing else really to see or do. So my advice is skip it.
Yep, I
Just
agree.
do the full day in Florence, and you can do like a Florence on your own thing where they drop you off. Make your plans in advance for because the museums do require like reservation ticketing if you don't want to wait in line, and the especially when a cruise ship is in town or it's summertime, peak season, you really you want to make sure that you have reservations at the museum. So it's worth paying in advance. So I would say if you're going to go to Florence the first time, if you have something that you really, really want to see, make sure that you have reservations for that. But then I would also say leave a good chunk of time in the middle of your day, 3 or 4 hours to walk around, especially
Hmm.
around sort of lunch, right? Walk around, maybe have picked out in advance a restaurant that you want to try or a couple of them, and walk the neighborhoods and see. You probably find something really really delicious, but it's very walkable because Florence is not super super big. So you don't need to get into a cab. I mean there's like a palace that's up a hill that has spectacular gardens, so you probably want to take a cab or an
Right.
Uber up for
Yeah, because
that.
that hill is a climb.
It is a serious
It's
climb, but
it's
if you're
no
an active
joke.
person, you might want to just take a taxi there and then
Yeah, yeah,
walk
yeah.
down. Because it's a long walk. I mean, I would look on the Google map and see how much time you have. It might be too long of a walk if you don't have a lot of time. But um, there is for the most part though, everything that is sort of in the city center. It's really easy to walk around and see and experience. And yeah, it's spectacular. Every time we go to Europe, where we have like a cruise stop there in Florence, I'm like, I don't get off the ship every time in every port. I always get off the ship in Florence. Like I always
Right.
want to see Florence, even if it's just walking around. So
Yeah.
there's our what's hot about. And then finally, Romaine,
Yes.
to wrap things up, we have our viewer feedback and questions. And because I feel like this is really themed around you,
Okay. Oh
uh,
God.
we have our viewer feedback. Although you didn't cover your story that
No, we didn't get to it.
no, because we talked so much about the movies. Do you want to talk about your story or you want to
I
just go
mean, we
right into
can't.
viewer feedback?
Let's just go to the viewer feedback. We've
Okay.
droned on long enough.
All right, fine. Well, next week, only Romaine will tell her recent story then. We'll save
Oh,
on time a little
okay.
bit here. Julia says, Romaine, take responsibility for the moonroof situation in your car.
All
Uh,
right. So for listeners who don't know, Iris and I went to the
Viewers.
city recently, viewers, and on the way home, Iris opened the sunroof in our car, our brand new car. And I was driving, and when we got home, I parked the car and I went inside, and Iris got out, went inside, but she never closed the sunroof. And the next day, we did not take that car anywhere because we ended up taking a different car. And so it was open all day. And then later that evening, we got a torrential downpour, torrential. And then the inside of our car became a swimming pool. And I was furious with Iris because I never opened the sunroof on our car ever because I kind of can't stand them. And Iris was the one who had opened it, and she was the one who failed to close it. And so I was furious with her and I wanted to murder her. Now, there are some listeners who say that I also hold responsibility for this situation. As the driver, I should have made sure that the sunroof windows and everything were closed. But I got to be honest, as someone who never uses a sunroof, it is the last thing on my mind to remember to close it because I never use it. So I feel like, while yes, I do bear some responsibility, the bulk of the responsibility is on the part of my wife, who stupidly opened it, left it open, and drowned our car.
Okay. So
And
that's your feedback?
that's what I have to say to that.
All right. Well, I think it is. I mean, I appreciate the feedback because we've been begging for feedback. But
Yeah.
yeah, the issue is not everybody who watches these summer sessions is listening to our live daily
Well,
show,
they
so they have
should
no
be,
idea
because
what this.
that's where the good stuff is, people.
That's right. Obviously, you get to
I
hear about
mean,
Romaine and her dehumidifier in her car and not speaking to her wife for days. Yeah, it's
days.
great.
It's awesome.
That really sells the show,
Mhm.
I think. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, like this, really, because this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Heidi.
Heidi half them. Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Summer Sessions. This one's great. And you can subscribe to our live daily radio show. 2024 is a discount code at dnrstudios.com. Try us out for free, live every day. Why not? What could possibly go wrong?
Oh God, you actually start listening and like it again? Oh,
The
that's
worst.
horrible. Horrible for you.
Also, be sure to like and subscribe this episode and our channel here. And when you see this popping up in social media, be sure to share it so other people can feel the joy of
Yeah.
experiencing Derek and Romaine once again.
Mm-hmm.